Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next one comes from Quentin Morgan in response to the Roland MX-1 USB ports explained video, a video I did in January 2019. And Quentin writes, "Can you help please? I have a Korg keyboard with a USB 2 out and a Ketron expander also with a USB out. Can I plug both these keyboards into 2 of the 4 USB ports and then send them through USB to the Roland MX-1 and onwards from the Roland MX-1 to my laptop and subsequently door? Best wishes, Quentin." First thing to say about this is, I say it all the time, is the MX-1 was never designed to work as a USB hub. And that is how I'm reading your query, that you want a USB hub. Roland require a driver to be installed on the computer that hosts your door to receive MX-1 audio inputs. And in terms of sending and receiving non-Roland and in fact non-ARIA device, I would describe the situation as more more miss than hit. I can't get anything that is not supported Roland instruments described in the firmware updates to work with my MS1. I have tried other bits and bobs, but basically don't work. For me, I have seen comments on some of the user groups that other people have had other instruments working through the MX-1, but not necessarily working on the MX-1. My basic understanding here is, in truth, the answer is probably not. You have no idea what a lovely breeze I'm getting between. There's a window here behind me which you can see, and there's a window here in front of me. Hence the reason why this is a good location to do videos or do the video recording, because I get really lots of natural light from. In fact, actually, within the vicinity of a 4 metre square here, I've got 4 3 metre high windows. Anyway, the next one comes from Trevor Nelson in response to installing more memory and a new battery on your Korg OASYS. A video I did in 2018, July 2018, when I got hold of my OASYS. And Trevor Nelson writes, "Is it worth purchasing the Korg OASYS now after so many years after its initial launch in 2005? And if so, why?" And I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to caveat it and say yes. Of course it is. I own one, so of course I'm still going to say it's worth it. The engines on the OASYS are essential, the forerunners of the engines that have been installed on the Kronos. In fact, when in the base Kronos, the engines were pretty much 1-to-1 between the 2 platforms. Although you don't have as many engines on the OASYS as you do on the Kronos, of course. And you can use these to structure sounds, your own custom sounds, and store them on the internal disk. It uses the same AD and sampling components of the of the Kronos as well. It's exactly the same mechanism, same parts. I think there were some tweaks between versions 1 and versions 2 of the Kronos, and everything that's come after Kronos 2 is effectively Kronos 2. I think there were some tweaks, and I can't remember exactly what they are. Basically, Kronos expanded the OASYS concept by having a Linux computer running at the centre of the machine and running everything. And then Korg have just put custom code on top of that, which is all Linux generated, and it also is using the Linux real-time kernels, which is how you can swap sounds mid-song and the new sound doesn't play until you hit the next note. So all that kind of stuff is kind of all embedded in the OASYS as well. I think the Oasis, the whole concept of the Oasis has really changed the way manufacturers have thought about synthesizers, because up until this point, synthesizers were an embedded, a custom chipset that the manufacturers come to create the synthesis, and you couldn't really do an awful lot with it. Whereas the whole open architecture of the Oasis, the whole idea of that was you could just write synth engines. And unfortunately, I think the problem was that the Oasis 88 was an £8,000 plus machine. When Korg released it, the screen at 10 inches was great, but it was too expensive for what it was. The knobs, the folders can be mapped to all kinds of parameters in terms of the system. The sequencer has enough flexibility to compose more or less a complete piece. In fact, I use the sequencer quite a lot for roughing out stuff, and people have said, well, why do you not use one of your DAW for that? And I say, well, it's actually, funny enough, it's probably easier to rough stuff out and get rough note structures and chord patterns and stuff like that on the keyboard, and then just play that into a DAW, than it is to actually try and record it into a DAW. People may argue with that what I'm saying there, but honestly, guys, I find it far easier doing that. And the other thing about the Oasis, if you get an Oasis, is the key bed on the Oasis is utterly wonderful. I love the key bed on the Oasis, but that probably is one of the things that contributes to the fact it was an £8,000 keyboard. Now, the problem is that a good second-hand version of the Oasis is still going to set you about £2,000, and for that money you get a good second-hand. You can get a good second-hand Kronos. And if you're looking for a workstation like right now, personally, I probably would be banging down Roland's door, because I think the Phantom's stolen the march. If that's my view, and especially with the baby Phantom now being launched. The problem is that the price for a good I'm just repeating what I'm saying. Oh dear. So to answer your question, if you can acquire one for a good price, yes, it's well worth acquiring. After all, Tony Banks from Genesis is still using a Korg OASYS on the current Last Domino tour, and not a Kronos or a Nautilus, which I found very interesting. So I'm hoping that my ramble here has provided you with some insight on why Oasis has stood the test of time. It is a computer. A lot of the parts on it are still readily available if they go wrong. It's not like sort of keyboards from the 80s where you're scurrying around on Syntor trying to get parts. You can still get a lot of the parts from mainstream manufacturers for the Oasis, as you can for the Korg Kronos. So, you know what? I think this might be one of those ones where you sort of kind of, if you want an Oasis. I wanted an Oasis. I was lucky enough that when I acquired my Oasis, the bid had gone way beyond what I was prepared to pay for it. But the guy who bid for the keyboard itself then turned around and said that there were two bids going up, and I was dubious that the second bidder was the person selling it under another user account trying to up the price. And in fact, I'm pretty convinced of that. And obviously, when the Oasis, when the buyer bought it, he said he couldn't pay for it, and he cancelled the bid. And then of course it came back to me, which was much lower, but I got an Oasis out of it. Anyway, hope that helps.